We are live, more or less, from Las Vegas. With Mark Anthony, I'm Rick Rosen, and this is Good Sports.
Hey,
Good
hey, hey.
afternoon, Mark. What's happening, man?
It's not 120 blazing degrees here in Vegas, finally.
Yeah, it's a nice day, at least temperature-wise, in the evening. Last night I went out on my porch. I thought I heard a noise out there, and I always go to check and make sure everything was locked up. And it was like 75 degrees, maybe a little couple degrees warmer than that, but it was so nice. I just stood there for like 5 minutes and enjoyed the cool
Yeah,
breeze. But
definitely.
couple of things. We had another officer get shot today in Las Vegas, not very far from where we do the other show, Mark, where the Vegas Lions have the studios there at Sahara and Red Rock. The officer is fine. It can't say the same thing for the guy that shot him. He's still dead, laying there. I guess they put the tent over him because they're the ones that would have had to smell him cooking in the whatever the heat is. And I suppose it's probably better all the way around that it's not 112 degrees like it was.
Yeah.
But we wish the cop well. He was grazed in the neck, and of course the talking heads on the TV station. Oh, the quick thinking of his partner saved his life. He put him in the car and got him in the hospital, but the guy was grazed in the neck by a bullet. He was not shot between the eyes, and his partner stuck his index finger in there to staunch the bleeding. So anyway, I think it's probably overblown. I mean, somebody did try to kill him. That's what you do when you shoot somebody with the gun. It's rarely whenever there's cops involved, well, they could have shot him in the legs. Well, you know what? When you're in a gunfight, you're happy to hit what you're shooting at, and we'll be picky later. But when somebody's shooting at you, you rarely have the presence of thought to say, well, gosh, he looks like a nice young man with a fine family. Maybe that'll convince him not to shoot me anymore. So, shoot to kill is what they did. A sad note, Mark, an incredibly sad note for Raider Nation. The Snake, Kenney Stabler, has passed on. He had colon cancer, and it came as a shock. 69 years of age, and if you remember back to the halcyon days of the Raiders, Kenney Stabler was certainly a part of that. Jim Plunkett and Tom Flores and all the other Raider great quarterbacks, there was Kenney Stabler, who, if you heard him talk, he made you laugh every time you heard him, because he would say, "Hi, I'm Kenney Stabler." And he just didn't sound like a tough guy, much less an NFL quarterback. But he followed Bart Starr and Joe Namath at Alabama, and that great tradition of quarterbacks that went into the NFL from Alabama. Kenney Stabler was one of them. He was the Snake, and he played football like you wanted football played. I think it was something that he got at Alabama, if I'm not mistaken, and he was elusive. He was a big guy. He was 6'3", 6'4", and kind of big for a quarterback at the time. And I don't know exactly the how he got the nickname, but he was the Snake, man. And before Jake the Snake, the kid come out of Arizona State that played with the Broncos for a while, Jake Plummer. But anyway, well, rest in peace. Was anything Kenney Stabler. He was very much the party animal, and from all that I've ever talked to that knew him, not that we had extensive conversations about him with some of the Raiders, but he was held in high regard by all the Raiders. He was really a Raider. He was the guy that was the perfect fit for that team. He was a Raider. I don't know if he'd been as good as a Ram or a Charger or a whatever else, but he was a Raider through and through, and our thoughts and prayers out to his family. On to a lighter note, Mark, we're headed on the 15th of this month to the All-Star game, and the people got the message that Kansas City, as we were headed down the stretch with the vote, Kansas City was going to have 8 of the 9 position players starting would have been Kansas City Royals, and people wised up, and the teams asked people to vote. You could vote up to 35 times, and the people in Kansas City did so, and the people elsewhere did not. So it shook them out of the apathy, and now they're 4 Kansas City starters, which is a good amount for an all-star team. But nonetheless, I think it beats it beats back the controversy of having eight position players start. Yeah, and the last time something like this happened, and they made major changes in how the teams are selected, it was because the fans of Cincinnati stuffed the ballot box, and I believe they had 7 guys that were voted in, and they literally took the vote away from the fans because of what happened with the Cincinnati Reds. And then they gave it back, and then they tweaked it here and tweaked it there. And, they give it such importance, Mark. It gives home field advantage to one of the leagues in the World Series. They used to just alternate, and now they've given this, okay, to give some importance to our phony beauty pageant, we're going to try to put it on the line. And a game ended in a tie several years back, 10, 12 years, something like that. They just ran out of players. They ran out of pitchers. They ran out of anybody else to put in, and they called the game as a tie. And they said that's not good for the fans and the sponsors and TV and et cetera. So they put this added importance on the game, and so the leagues play. But if you're a guy from the Colorado Rockies, do you really give a tinker's damn whether your league does or does not have the home field advantage in the World Series? Because it ain't going to include you unless you buy a ticket to the thing. So I think a much better reason, a much better way they could give home field advantage is, it used to be the mystique. You only saw the Dodgers and the Yankees in the World Series. You only saw the Red Sox and the Pirates in a World Series. Now, with interleague play and everything, it really has taken some of the luster out of the World Series. But they play an equal number of games in interleague play. So there are teams that are not in your division or in your league that everybody has competition with the same number of games. And I think it would be wise for them to say, okay, let's take the best winning percentage between whichever league their players have won the overall interleague series. Let's give that some value in deciding who has the home field advantage, and add that to the winning league in the All-Star game. And if it's the same thing, if it's the same league has won it twice, they're automatically, they have the home field advantage. If one league wins one and one league wins the other, then a tiebreaker, I think, would be something cool. I mean, whether it came down to home run derby or a skills contest or a flip of the coin or something, I think would add some excitement and some, this is the Major League All-Star game is slightly better than what hockey does, and hockey is slightly better than what the NBA does, and they're all a whole hell of a lot better than what the NFL does with their all-star games. The NFL used to play the college all-stars, and they played in Chicago every year, and they had a real bad lightning storm one year, and that was the end of the all-star game for the NFL. They do play the all-pro game in Hawaii every year, and it's an absolute joke. There's no rushing. There's no this. There's no that. And I mean, for an NHL game, an All-Star game, you'll see 15 goals scored, and they put the different goalies in, and there's just no continuity. And so it's target practice. It's shooting ducks in a barrel. The Major League Baseball almost is the leader in it. Actually is a fun game. It's a game that some of them take seriously, and some of them are just happy to be there. But if you remember back a few years, Pete Rose crashed into a young man who come out of Cleveland whose dad had been a great ball player named Bob Fosse, and Ray Fosse, and Ray Fosse Jr. was the catcher, and he was the all-star for the Cleveland Indians. And there was a hit, and Pete Rose had been on second base, and sure enough, here he come around in third, and here comes the throw, and it's going to be close at the plate. And Pete Rose lowered his shoulder and drilled Ray Fosse, and ended his career, separated his shoulder, and he was out for the rest of the year, and he never came back. It was never anything like it. But that was Pete Rose being Pete Rose and winning everything. And I think people need to look at that when they talk about Pete Rose. Every year at this time, because of the All-Star game, Mark, they bring in the conversations about who is and is not in the Hall of Fame. I personally believe that the strength of your Hall of Fame is not necessarily just by who's in, but also its strength is there because of who's not in, who's almost in. You were almost good enough to be in our Hall of Fame, but you were just a good player and not a great player. And And so the people that they leave out also have some equity in that argument of who belongs and who doesn't. And we're going to be back with does Pete Rose belong in? Absolutely. I think what he did on the baseball field cannot be compared to any other human being that's ever played baseball. You know, he got the 4,100 and some odd hits, and had the 44-game hitting streak. I mean, those are things that he has the National League record still. He broke Willie Keeler's record for consecutive games with the hit. I believe it was at 44.
Okay,
Pete Rose played baseball as well as you'd ever want it. Go ahead.
Now, Pete Rose has been out for what, 20 years?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah,
and
somewhere in that range.
And his records still stand.
Oh, absolutely.
Wow.
I of all unbreakable records, I think somebody may very well break DiMaggio's 56-game hitting streak. They get close to it. You'll see guys get into the 30s at some point during this year. Somebody will have, it'll be enough of a consecutive games hitting streak that it'll make the newspapers and the internet now, and those type of things. But 56 games, he did not have an incredibly good batting percentage the year that he had the 56-game hitting streak. There were several games where he only got one hit in that game, and their winning percentage, I mean, he was very lucky to play for the Yankees, but that was also the year that Ted Williams won the Triple Crown. In other words, he led the league in home runs, in batting average, and in RBIs. And that Miguel Cabrera with the Tigers just did it. He was the next guy to do it. I mean, it's a very rare occurrence. Carl Yastrzemski did it with the Red Sox in 1967, and I mean, he's still eating free there. It's a very, very tough thing to do, this Triple Crown, and Ted Williams won it and did not win the MVP because Joe DiMaggio had this 56-game hitting streak, which, again, it's just all kind of circumstantial to me. Joe DiMaggio, never lacking for ego, used to demand that when he be introduced as the greatest living ball player. And somebody brought that up on the show I was doing from Caesars one time. And we had a guest on, and he said, yeah, Joe DiMaggio, the greatest living ball player. And I said, oh, my God, did Willie Mays die? And I wouldn't take 5 Joe DiMaggios for one Willie Mays. DiMaggio was very fortunate to be with the Yankees, and Willie Mays was with a lesser team in the Giants and played at Candlestick Park, where he would have had another couple hundred home runs had he been playing somewhere else or in Yankee Stadium like DiMaggio. So anyhow, Pete Rose, in my estimation, Mark, certainly belongs in the Hall of Fame. Heaven is there for good guys. It's not a good guy Hall of Fame. It's a baseball Hall of Fame. And what Pete Rose has done on the baseball field is unequaled. And how he played the game was so much fun to watch. Charlie Hustle, just as a guy that ran to first base on a walk. And people asked him, why do you do that? And he said, because sometimes the ball has gotten away from the catcher. Sometimes they screw up. And if I can make it to second base on a walk, that's a pretty darn good thing. Nobody behind me has to lay down a bunt and get an out. And so he says it does create opportunities. So once in a while it comes into play, and he says, and that's why I do it. So he earned that nickname of Charlie Hustle from doing things like that, Mark. But I think it's stupid. Pete Rose never bet against his team. I don't think he ever lost a damn thing. There was a chance of him winning competitive wise. Like I say, he ended a guy's career in the damned All-Star game. And so now they're saying, well, but he violated the rule, and yeah, I guess, but the intent of the rule is don't throw games. And I don't think Pete Rose ever threw a game. It was the result of the Black Sox scandal in 1919, shoeless Joe Jackson, and they threw the World Series. And shoeless Joe Jackson still not in the Hall of Fame, Mark. In the series that they threw, his teammates threw, he batted over 400. He had a tremendous. He's got one of the highest batting averages in that particular World Series for anybody ever to have gotten. So to say this guy was part of a conspiracy to lose on purpose, I think the facts do not equal the allegations, right? As far as I'm concerned. But anyway, Pete Rose, you know, he's now approaching 70 years of age or thereabouts, and I think he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. You know, how many more pounds of flesh do you want from this guy? Okay, he's got to be contrite, and he's got to admit this, and he's got to keep putting conditions on it. You know, it's almost like being out with the young lady, and you're done with dinner, and you've had the wine and the dine, and now you've gone to the movies, and you gone out dancing, and now it's like, well, maybe if there were some flowers, maybe I would be in the mood. And so you run outside and pick the flowers out of your garden and bring them in and throw them in the vase. Okay, baby. And well, you know, I always like chocolate before I get in the mood, and you know, and by the time they're done, you've done 10 things and you're still not getting laid. And I think that's kind of the situation that Pete Rose finds himself in. But I hope they put him in before he dies. You know, afterwards, yeah, who gives a damn, especially him. But, you know, it remains to be seen. Baseball's, again, money-driven and ego-driven. And so, but Las Vegas has a couple of guys going to be in that All-Star game, Chris Bryant and Bryce Harper.
Really?
Both grew up playing on the same team. They played on the same youth team here in Las Vegas. I don't think forever, but they had some all-star teams and this and that. So they were competitors and our friends and two of the brightest stars. You know, Chris Bryant with the Cubs, and he made it as a third baseman. And of course, the day he made it, he made an error on a ball that was coming to him, fielding it, and then he got the double whammy in that he overthrew first base once he did recover the ball. So that was the day, I believe that was on the day that he was named to the All-Star game. And Bryce Harper, man, I don't know if there's a more natural looking swing that I have ever seen. And he is a tremendous baseball player. And with the Washington Nationals, who were the laughingstock for as long as anyone can remember, and now they are a legitimate contender. They've got Steven Strasburg, who's on the DL, the pitcher that came out of San Diego, that had thrown, at least they have measured him at throwing a baseball at 108 miles an hour.
Wow.
If you just think of that, he's 60 feet 6 inches from you and can propel something at 108 miles an hour. Now, he doesn't throw that on a regular basis, but he certainly did. He can, and he always, when he wants to throw that heater past you, it's at 100 and something miles an hour. I mean, literally can throw much harder than Nolan Ryan on his best day ever could. And Nolan Ryan was a hell of a flamethrower. You know, another guy who kind of got more acclaim than he deserved. I think he was a one-trick pony. He barely has a 500 winning percentage. The only World Series that he ever won, he was a rookie with the New York Mets, the amazing Mets, when they won it all in '69, and he was kind of a bench warmer. They had Tom Seaver and Jerry Koosman and on down the road, all Hall of Famers in their own right. And Nolan Ryan pretty much was the afterthought there, but he got his World Series ring and never was able to get anybody, the Angels or the Rangers or the Astros, to the World Series, but he has the 7 no-hitters. But you know, I think that always comes down to, would you rather have a guy who I mean, do you like the sizzle or do you like the steak? Because Nolan Ryan was the sizzle, and there went a whole hell of a lot of steak to his deal.
Right.
Ted Williams, you know, there again, Ted Williams, as good as he was never good enough to give his team a world championship. So, you know, there's always that argument. Do you measure greatness by championships? Do you measure greatness in football by Super Bowls won? Or do you say there's greatness even though they didn't win the Super Bowl? You know, does that detract from their record? And I think the feeling amongst the players is, yeah, if you don't have a Super Bowl victory on your resume, there's a hole there. We may say you were good, and we may say you were pretty darn good, but I don't think they ever say you were just nothing but great without having that Super Bowl victory. And World Series victories in baseball, Stanley Cups in hockey. You know, Ernie Banks, one of the finest baseball players to ever play, unfortunately played with the Chicago Cubs. Let's play too. And he was always so happy, and what a great ambassador for baseball. But they never won squat when he was there. You know, the last time they were in the World Series was 1948. And had it not been for Steve Bartman, so many blame, the kid that reached over and grabbed the foul ball that would have been caught for a second out, and then the Padres rallied and kept the Cubs from going back to the World Series. And anyhow, it's kind of a strange thing there. Moving on a little bit, Mark, NASCAR. I don't know if you saw the wreck at the end of the long day at Daytona, when the race had finished, and Austin Dillon was down on the bottom, and Denny Hamlin got spun at the start finish line and taking the checkered flag and got into Dillon and turned him across, and he went up and over Tony Stewart and a couple of other cars and into the catch fence and wiped out about 3 sections of that fence with the poles, and dropped back down onto the track, and the car was in pieces. The motor was out, and there was a little bit of fire here and there, and the wheels were either off, and he was sitting in the middle of the track, and Brad Keselowski come around the turn trying to finish the race, and lost control and slammed into Dillon as he was upside down, and Dale Earnhardt's crew came running out. They had pit choice, and they took that very first pit stall, and they were closest to him, and they went running out there across the track, across where it was dangerous, to get to Austin Dillon, and that was very heartwarming to see. And the guys were all on their bellies digging in that car trying to find where that kid was, and 5 or 10 seconds later, several of them stood up and gave the thumbs up, like he's okay, he's just hanging there upside down. And another 5 or 10 seconds went by, and they got him out, and Austin Dillon come out and give the old Lane Frost wave to the crowd with both hands up in the air and waved hello, and then took off his helmet and walked over to the ambulance, got in, and took off his stuff, and said he had a bruised tailbone and a sore part on his arm from that wreck. But it looked like it might have been the end of Austin Dillon, and how eerie it was to see that it was, he's in the number 3 car. His grandpa is Richard Childress, who was Dale Earnhardt's longtime owner, and the numbers stay with the cars. And it was long enough. I mean, you tell jokes and people will say too soon, and they wanted to get that number 3 car back out there, and it's Austin Dillon, and he's doing them proud. I mean, he's a good kid, and he won the pole out here at Vegas for the Xfinity race, and just come over, and I mean, just a very personable, nice young man. He seems to be having fun and has his head on straight, and so but again, got up into that catch fence there at Daytona, and I don't know what else they can do, Mark, to keep these cars on the ground. Even with the restrictor plates, they're going well over 200 miles an hour. And something moving 200 miles an hour is going to have lift. If you could throw a frickin' frisbee at 200 miles an hour, it would cut through timber. I mean, and you get something that's aerodynamically sound to pull you down. Once it does get some air under it, or it does start to turn over, now instead of sucking you down, it picks you up, and that's exactly what it did. He literally flew right over the top of Tony Stewart's car, and I don't think it did much damage to it. And once he got that air under him, he was just along for the ride. But that can't as much as as quick as you've seen a vehicle stop. They estimate he was going about 185 miles an hour at the point of impact, and I don't think the car made it another 100 feet down the track. So that sudden stop will get you every time. But anyway, and now at Kentucky in last night's truck race, series truck race at Kentucky, up into the wall, and I forgotten the kid's name, but anyway, his truck got up into the fence and wiped out some of the fence, and it was not that big of a deal because nobody was there. There was, I think, in the photo of that entire section of stands, there were 2 people in the stands. So, but NASCAR is they're going to either have to bring down the speeds appreciably or do something to keep these cars in the track, because the absolute worst nightmare of any racing series, whether it's Formula One, who's had tragedies of cars going into the stands, at Le Mans that happened, and Indy cars, Roberto and hit a tire that had come off someone else's car wheel assembly and knocked it way up into the stands, 50 or 60 rows up into the stands in Indianapolis, and it killed someone. And their worst fear is that somebody makes it up into the stands and kills the paying public. And NASCAR has dodged some bullets. Kyle Larson last year at Daytona hit that fence and tore down some of it, and they made some adjustments. The reason they have the restrictor plates is they were going too fast at Talladega, and and Daytona, and Richard Petty had a horrific wreck and pirouetted, just come tumbling down the front stretch, and it kept bouncing off that fence. Bobby Allison got up into that fence and did some damage, and they could see the handwriting on the wall. Jeff Badine had one of the most god-awful wrecks you've ever seen in one of the trucks, and just absolutely came so apart, all the pieces. I mean, it was strewn probably a good 300, 400 yards, Mark, down the front stretch from where the wreck started. And there was, you know, a little bit of a piece of a bumper to where the last of it ended up. And you just knew that Jeff Badine was dead. And of course, he was too hard-headed to be injured that hard or that bad. But nonetheless, NASCAR is pretty proactive in these things. And the last thing, again, any racing series wants or needs is to have a car get up into the audience, because that would certainly put a damper on the next the attendance figures at your next few races. I'm almost positive. So, you know, they go to watch other people get hurt or get in wrecks. They really don't want to be in them themselves. You know, it's like, do you like watching train crashes? Yes, from over here I do. From on board the train, it ain't near so much fun.
It's kind of like winter. I like to watch it on the internet.
Yeah, well, I have a joke about that. Would you like to hear the joke?
Yeah, why not?
Little kid's walking down the hall. Here's mom and dad being passionate one night, and the mom's getting noisy, and he runs in. And of course, dad looks and says, "What do you want?" He says, "What's going on? What's all the noise?" And dad says, "Get the hell out of here. We're just having some fun." So the kid goes ahead and pees and goes back to bed. 3 or 4 days later, he's walking down the hall, and he sees grandma laying there taking a nap, and it's hot, and she's laying on the bed, and he runs in and jumps on her. Starts going to town. Of course, grandma's screaming. Old man hears it. He comes running down. What the hell's going on? And the little kid looks up. He says, "Ain't so funny when it's your mama, is it?" So I thought there was an opportunity to throw that one in. By the way, Deron Williams has now reached a buyout agreement with the New York Nets. The New Jersey Nets, whatever the hell they are, Nets. He's no longer going to be a member of that team, because DeAndre Jordan backed out of his deal with Dallas, and Dallas had money to spend that they had budgeted towards him, and didn't sign other free agents or go after other free agents. Have really kind of rolled the dice and come up smelling pretty good. They're going to end up with Deron Williams, who they need a point guard. They had Rajon Rondo, and that didn't work out very well. So they're going to get Williams and see what that does for them. But it may very well work out that the best thing that happened to them was DeAndre Jordan telling them thanks, but no thanks. It's a kind of an odd situation, but Williams is getting up there, and the Nets are going to suck. And he's not, you know, he's been on our Olympic team, Mark. We've seen him at Basketball USA, and the Brooklyn Nets. That's who they are now. That's the borough they're playing in this year. You know, he's part of that team, and he's a very talented point guard. But you know, when he was with the Utah Jazz, I just don't think he's as good as advertised. And I think. But he's going to get $10 million to go, or that was his buyout, and he's going to get at least that to go play. All that money from Mark Cuban to go play, and in Dallas, and see if he can lead them to the promised land. Kevin Garnett, your guy, re-signed with the Minnesota Timberwolves, Mark, for his 20th and 21st seasons, and I believe there's only one other person that's played 21 seasons in the NBA, and. But Kevin Garnett going back to Minnesota, so you know, maybe they'll roll him out there in the wheelchair to shoot free throws or something, I guess. But
anything would help.
Yeah, pretty much. You and I could probably help the T-Wolves now. They miss Kevin Love. It's an odd situation there too, Mark. They've got the last 2 first-round overall picks, or at least the 2 before that. In Barnett, the kid that played at UNLV, and Andrew Wiggins, who came from Kansas, who, when LeBron James said we'd like Kevin Love here, the Cavaliers said, yeah, we'll give both the last 2 years #1 overall pick to you. And of course, they Love obviously wasn't a huge factor in Cleveland. He wasn't healthy for most of the year, little nicks and dings and this and that, and then he got his shoulder dislocated in a real cheap shot kind of deal. And so anyway, I think I think the Timberwolves are going to be okay. They got the kid down Kentucky, and they're going to be a better team overall, but they're going to be a young team, and it's going to take them a couple of years. But they've certainly got some basketball talent they've accumulated there, Mark. I guess that's pretty much it. Greg Hardy from the Cowboys got his suspension reduced by an arbitrator from 10 games down to 4 games. And
we have the Bucks coming here, man. Come on.
Yeah, and supposedly somebody's going to come here. The Phoenix hockey team's going to come here, and the Milwaukee Bucks are going to come here, and I'll believe it when I see it. Things are so driven by the casinos here for attendance and those kind of things. The Pro Bowl riders are one of the few that really come in here that don't have that overwhelming. First of all, when they were at Mandalay Bay, they did half the finals at the Mandalay Bay, and then they switched over to the Thomas and Mack. I don't think the Mandalay Bay or MGM Grand Properties and the Little Smurf brought in people in such numbers that it made a huge difference to them, and I think that might be why they backed away a little bit. Now it's all at the Thomas and Mack. So I think they're one of the very few things that can be outside of a casino and kind of hold their own. Obviously the NFR finals do that too. They're not beholden to any one group where a casino brings in their high rollers and says, okay, we're going to bring you to a championship fight. Come throw $100,000 on our craps table, and which people do quite readily. But these two sports are different. I think hockey, again, I say this over and over and over. If first couple of years, they'll get away with whatever they put out there on the ice. People are going to go and see and yay and whatever. But people here in Las Vegas like winners, Mark. And I don't think unless they have a winning team out there, a very exciting winning team, that they're going to do very well. And I think it would be the same way for the NBA. There's 40-something home games, and with the exhibitions and all that nonsense, we want to see good basketball. You can go see the summer league here. You can wait till August and go see Basketball USA and see some of the finest basketball players ever. So if a team doesn't come in and start winning right away, I think they lose any luster, and it's so much harder to get it back. So I'm not real convinced that either one of them will work. The only thing that I would guarantee will work here in Las Vegas is an NFL franchise, and I think it'll be a cold day in hell when we see that here, simply because of their attitudes about gambling. Even though gambling is what made the NFL as popular as it is. We talked to Johnny Avello, our friend, the race and sportsbook director at the Wynn, and we talked about that earlier with Johnny. It's gambling that made the NFL. If it's convenient to gamble on football, it just lends itself to what the gamblers have figured out. Here's the system where we can screw you out of your money. The bookies have, and so it's easier to do that than hockey. Hockey, so low scoring, and baseball the same way. One thing can change things up quite a bit, so people are a little less reticent to bet unless we get a football franchise in here. Of course, we've got the Running Rebels, and they've got their new coaching regime in Bishop Gorman, which many people think could have beaten the Running Rebels of Bobby Hawk on any given day, simply because they had more talent. Obviously, they would have been younger, a high school team. But let's see if Tony Sanchez can do it for the Running Rebels. Some controversy about the Rebels, Mark, in the name Rebels. South Carolina just took down the Confederate flag off their grounds days after the funerals for the 9 people that were killed in South Carolina, with that flag being some of the impetus to at least for the young man that killed those. That
is the biggest piece of bullshit on the planet, Rick, and you know it.
Well, Mark, people use their symbols. You're right, and I don't. I went to a school called South High School, and we played Dixie. It was because it was South, and the South shall rise again, and whatever. So now political correctness has taken over. I can only say that, Mark, because I'm not black, and I wasn't the byproduct of slavery. Maybe way back several generations, the Jewish part were slaves there in Egypt, but that was a long time ago. Slavery in America is only a couple hundred years ago, and Vermont being the very first state in the nation to outlaw slavery in 1777 after the Declaration of Independence, and it has taken a long, long time. People use that flag as a symbol of hatred. They may have hijacked it, and you're right, guys. Good Americans gave their lives for that flag, fighting for what they believed in. But if what they believed in was slavery and wrong, it remains a symbol for that. And I don't think there's 100% right or 100% wrong, Mark, but it is coming down. The Redskins, this week, the judge ruled that they have no protection for their trademark. They can still use it. But if somebody else uses that trademark, if you were to make something with the Redskins logo on it and go out there and sell it, there would be nothing anybody could do because it is not trademarked and it is not legally a trademarkable thing. So it would just be good that we'll be able to keep people from using that Redskins logo and those kind of things. And I think that's probably much more racist, Mark, overall speaking, than the Confederate flag is in and of itself. It is simply a piece of cloth with the stars and bars on it. I mean, but the Redskins name is something you hear. You can avert your eyes, I guess. I guess you could plug your ears, but I know I see the flag behind you, Mark, and NASCAR has tried very hard to say, okay, we're with it, we get it. This is our chance to finally get rid of it and say, okay, we don't need it here. It doesn't make the cars go any faster, and it's for all you redneck bastards out there that are out there drinking beer and don't think much of people of color.
Let's forget where we came from. Let's forget where we started from. Let's forget who actually made us rich. Okay, let's just all of those Southerners made us rich billionaires. So let's just tell them to go screw themselves.
Wait a second. Let me call time out for a minute. Okay. And here's the crux of that matter. You're right. They sent a great deal of money went north because the South did not have the raw materials to make the products, to use the things that they were growing down there, cotton being the main thing, but they used slave labor. They didn't pay the people that were making. It's like Nike. I don't wear Nikes. You know what? You're paying some kid in China 87 cents a day to make these freaking shoes that you're selling for $200 a pair. Hang on a second. There's something wrong with this, and I think you're right. The South did enrich and did produce a lot of revenue, but it was on the backs of people who didn't get paid for their part. So it's tough to just say one without the other. They're intertwined. It's like Siamese twins. We can't just start cutting them in half.
Rick, I'm not even going back that far. I'm just saying that the owners of NASCAR made their billions off the southern states. That's where it started.
Yes.
Okay.
Certainly where it started, with moonshine.
Right. Okay. So NASCAR as a corporation, as the France family is cashing the $1 billion checks, they're telling their base to go screw themselves. These are the people who made them wealthy.
20 years ago, Mark, you would have been correct. But along came Jeff Gordon, and along came Jimmy Johnson, along came Kevin Harvick, and along came the guys out of Wisconsin, Dick Trickle, and now you've got Matt Kenseth, and you've got these guys that come from somewhere other than the Deep South, even though all of them, except for the 78 team out of Denver, are located within 20 miles of each other in North Carolina. They are in the heart of Dixie. And you're right. They that was their base. That's what they used to get to where they are now, but they don't need them anymore. So it's the people that want to continue raising that flag and raising that issue don't have near the cards they had 10 or 15 years ago. And it is a symbol, and NASCAR because they're going to lose sponsors. It's like Donald Trump. A lot of people might agree with him and he's doing good in the polls and everything. And, but do you want somebody so stupid that they would say that in public as a thing? He's not electable now.
Yeah.
If he's the report, I'm telling you right now,
then Hillary he is more electable now than Hillary.
Do you realize that the Mexican population is our #1 minority is size-wise now? And so to everybody else is pandering to them. Jeb Bush speaks very fluent Spanish because his wife is Mexican. And so he is very fluent, and it is somewhat pandering. You only hear him speak Spanish I don't think you hear him do it when he goes into the Walmart and asks where the toilet paper aisle is. But he speaks Spanish enough and is going to be accepted by the Hispanic community, who's going to be a big voting bloc. And I don't think Donald Trump can overcome alienating millions upon millions of potential voters.
Okay,
just by
Rick,
even if he believes it,
Rick,
if he'd said
Rick,
they bring in the drugs
Rick,
and they're bringing this, but when it got to rape,
Rick,
where the hell
Rick,
was Bill Cosby in that? Yeah, go ahead.
Rick, stop
Take
watching,
down your damn flag.
Stop watching Jon Stewart and read the real news. Okay, more legal immigrants are mad about the illegal population because they're being lumped in. And it's just it's just
no
inferred.
Question.
It's just inferred
My
that
children are half Mexican.
That you're Latino. It's like saying you're black, therefore you vote Democrat. Okay, you have a lot of,
which for the most part is true.
You have a lot of legal immigrants that are like, hey, he's right. We got all these illegals coming across.
Who have you talked to that has possibly given you that idea? Because they lied to you, for one.
Oh, bullshit.
The Mexicans and the Hispanics, for the most part, wouldn't piss on Donald Trump if he burst into flames, okay? And he's not going to get their votes, and he's not electable.
There's a family.
I will bet you whatever you
would,
care to
and
lose.
there's a lot of them in Texas that would. Okay.
Well, but where are you getting your facts? From the same tooth fairy that said, okay, it's okay.
Hey, I'm not getting them from
John. The truth, Mark.
From Jon Stewart, like you are.
Jon Stewart tells a hell of a let's go there. Jon Stewart or Fox News, which one is less biased? One has both. He has Republicans and Democrats on. He had Jeb Bush on. Okay,
Democrat.
When's the last time? Yeah, when's the last time Fox News had Hillary on with anything other than her looking down the cleavage of some babe standing next to her?
Hillary doesn't talk to the media. She flies on her private jet, hiding emails from foreign governments who are paying her millions of dollars.
Oh God, yes. Oh yeah, and I want you to know that that's right there with the weapons of mass destruction. Nicholas Cheney should have a great conversation. What did happen to those? Well, they're still hidden somewhere in the desert. Well, let me ask you this question. If you're Saddam Hussein and you're living in a rat hole, they call it, and you have access to weapons of mass destruction, and you know the U.S. Army and the Marines and the Air Force and everybody is 20 miles away, isn't that about time to use them? Isn't that about, hey, you know all the missiles we got laying there? Hassam, shoot them. Let them go. Fire them. They're right there. Just set them for 20 miles and turn them loose. And it didn't happen. There were no weapons of mass destruction. So,
and meanwhile,
there are not enough Mexican Trump to make any difference whatsoever in any election coming up. He could not be elected dog catcher in El Paso, is what I'm trying to say. He could spend $1 billion on this election. He's not electable. Now, what he's saying has some validity to it, Mark. We don't get Mexico's best.
They're actually letting facts get into your head finally.
We don't. Well, listen. We don't. They don't come here because they're already successful. So they come here looking for the American dream, and our border is a joke. And there are some things, but if you don't think that going over the line is saying they're rapists, it's different to say we don't get their best, and they bring their drugs and they bring crime. Yep, those are all verifiable things. You're right.
Okay. But
when you say and they're rapists, and I assume that some of them are good people, you have now stuck your foot in your mouth all the way down to your hip, and that's what he's done. And I don't think there's any question that, first of all, he's not going to get the Republican nomination. It would be, as they say, political suicide for the party. It will be the end of the Republican Party if Donald Trump's your candidate. First of all, what the frick is that on your head, dude? You are wearing a live animal by all accounts on your head. His ego's too big, and nobody likes him, so he's not going to get elected.
Yeah,
and right. Hillary might not. Listen, Hillary might not. She didn't beat Barack Obama, so she thought she had it wrapped up 8 years ago, and she couldn't knock off Barack Obama. So it's not like she's the anointed one, the independent cat, what's his name? He's actually getting some people to look and listen and hear his side of the story. But that's our political rant, I suppose.
Yeah.
The flag behind you. It is a symbol that's going. And it's gone. And I think probably rightly so, Mark. We got bigger fish to fry, you know? And I think no less than the Nazi flag is so inflaming and such a
but yet you can buy it on
symbol
Amazon.
of hatred. You can buy it on Amazon, but you can't buy a Confederate flag now. They've taken all those off of eBay and Amazon and blah blah blah. And it's money, Mark. I don't think any of them all of a sudden have this epiphany. Oh my God, we're harming black folks. We're making them feel uncomfortable. No, it's oh shit, we're going to lose money, and that's what NASCAR has done. I think, Mark. I don't think they were. Why didn't you feel this way a month ago, or 2 months ago, or before this killing or that killing? We haven't heard from the gun lobby. The people that couldn't get it after what happened at Sandy Hook Elementary School when 26 kids and their teachers were massacred by one asshole with the gun that shoots too many frickin' bullets at one time. I'm not anti-gun, Mark, but there has to be some common sense.
So which flag caused Sandy Hook?
No, I didn't say it was a flag. I said it's the gun lobby always comes up and says, people have the right to bear arms. Yes, but you don't have the right to bear fucking nuclear arms. And you can't be shooting off hellfire missiles. So we allow ourselves to draw the line somewhere. I think the line is too far to weapons that are only there to kill other humans. You don't need a semi. The deer aren't armed. You know what I mean? And the bears and the lions that occasionally score one for the visitors or maybe the home team by mauling somebody or whatever are few and far between. It's like the sharks. Okay, the sharks have been eating people like it was the buffet off the coast of North Carolina. Nobody is going out there and shooting all the frickin' sharks. That would take, although it might be a good thing, target practice for those people that have nothing better to do with their guns. But gun violence, Mark, is just an asinine thing that we have here in America that they don't have in the rest of the world, unless you count ISIS and those places. And you do look at some of the things that ISIS has been able to do. They've been able to take over places in Syria where the only reason they got in is because the other people didn't have frickin' guns. So, I'm not so anti-gun, but I think here in America, we've just gone too far. The people are armed to the teeth with nothing more motivation than to kill another human being. They're not out there hunting with why do you need a semi-automatic rifle to hunt? You can do that with the bow and arrow. The Indians did it pretty darn successfully and didn't wipe out all the damn buffalo. They ate them, and they the next year they ate more of them because they didn't kill them all. We were down to as few as 200 bison in America when they finally started saving them, and same way with crocodiles with alligators and those kind of things, Mark. So it just takes that paradigm shift, as you're seeing with the flag. You're not going to be able to see it anymore. You're not going to be able to buy it. It's good that we got past that. I think the Redskins are doomed, and I think the flag is going to have a part of that. First of all, they're in Washington, not all that far from South Carolina. The Confederacy, the capital of the Confederacy was a stone's throw from Washington, D.C. And so they are in that part of the world and that neck of the woods, and they've okayed. They are trying very hard to legitimize or to legalize marijuana. And so if you're that progressive, I think you're going to see that the Redskins are going to have to give in, and some of that can be traced directly back to this controversy about the flag. But congratulations to the people of South Carolina. They took something down that was offensive to at least a great deal of their population and belongs in a museum and not flying over their state capital. And I don't disagree, Mark. I have relatives that fought for the South, and every year, my mom's side of the family, they have a reunion in Georgia, and it's for the O'Neills, and they send pictures of the people of the graves of my my absolute forefathers. I mean, my direct descendants. I am a direct descendant of these people that are buried, and some of them have the stars and bars on their gravestones, Mark, where they died in the Civil War. At least they fought in the Civil War and died after, and whatever. And so it is part of the past, but so are a lot of things. Like I say, there's just because it was in the past doesn't mean it was good. And so times have changed, Mark. We have gay marriage now. Times have changed. And, it used to be the controversy about a black quarterback. A kid named Marlon Briscoe played with the Denver Broncos, and he was the first black quarterback to take a snap in a pro football league. For a long time. Actually, Pollard with the Packers did so in the 20s. And then it fell out of favor. Somebody realized, hey, you know what? I believe that guy's darker than everybody else. And so he was no longer allowed to play quarterback. And now nobody gives a damn what color you are if you can score touchdowns. Nobody gives a damn whether you beat up your girlfriend or do whatever, or steal crab legs and stick them down the front of your pants, or do all kinds of stupid things. If you can throw a frickin' football or a baseball or shoot a basketball or do whatever, you're welcome into the world of sports. We don't care really what you do, as long as you can do the things that we like to watch. Well, we'll look past damn near anything. I mean, Ray Rice, for God's sakes, got an initial 2-game suspension from Roger Goodell, who's going to suspend Tom Brady for longer than that. Ray Rice knocked his girlfriend, his fiance, unconscious with a punch because she came at him, and he's a pro football player, and she made a move at him and he downed her and got a 2-game suspension from that. So times have changed. Domestic violence, used to be, if you didn't press charges, nobody went to, if you beat the shit out of your old lady and she didn't press charges, you didn't go to jail. Now it's if somebody shows a mark, somebody's going. And so our life is changing, Mark, and not necessarily for the better, but it's changing nonetheless. So, and Jason Pierre-Paul, kind of to wrap things up, had, stupidly, set off some kind of firework, had a mishap, and damaged his hand. The initial reports were that it blew off half of his arm, and now it's back to, well, it burned his hand, and he might have a little nerve damage in his middle finger, which again I think will affect his significant other much more adversely than it will any football player that he faces. But he has yet to sign the offer for $14.5 million, saying his agent said he needs long-term security. How much frickin' security do you need? $14.5 million for 1 year. It's not like he was poor going in. He already has played in the league 3 or 4 years. So he has accumulated some wherewithal up until now, and now he needs $14.5 million, and that's just not quite enough. I mean, how big is his frickin' family? How many mouths does this guy have to feed where $14.5 million this year alone ain't going to cover it? Because he's going to make another $14.5 million or whatever it is next year and the year after that, So it's like, well, he wants long-term security. Oh, okay. Isn't that it? Well, I think most normal people, if the lottery, the lotteries that people win in America are average less than $14 million. And people, if I hit the frickin' lottery, what would you do? I would go to Tahiti. Nobody would ever see me again. I would pay to have my in-laws drawn and quartered. I mean, there's all kinds of things. Nobody ever says, well, yeah, I'd have to stick it in the bank because and I hope I hit it again. I'd play extra tickets in the lottery because I would have to hit it twice for that security that I really am longing for. So, but yeah. Jason Pierre-Paul with the Giants, all is well. End of this month, Mark, the combines, the training camps open, and we'll be seeing big fat sweaty guys smack into each other for a while and hear about this injury or that development or whatever, and get around to playing football in another month or so.
Yes,
I think less than a month. They start playing in August, and so it's a good time. The Vegas Lions are having their combine for any of our listeners that think they want to play football or think they can play football. You can contact Jeff Belknap or Bill Miller. Vegas Lions, you can go online and see the website or listen to the radio show on Wednesdays at noon on Vegas All Net Radio and see about the combine that's coming up. They got a new coaching staff and a new direction, playing in a very exciting league, and so And if guys can play, man, if you can play and you want to show people that you can do it, just get out there and join up with the Vegas Lions. We'll be happy to have you.
When is there?
Can you play football, Mark?
No.
It's going to be, I believe, the very last week of where we're anticipating it being 4th. They haven't finalized just because they haven't got word back from the people that they need to get the permits from to have this thing at a city facility or city park or whatever. So,
okay. But
that's about it in the world of sports, Mark. Anything from your side? It's fight week, UFC.
Yep.
You know, they're all the big guns are in town. The Invicta had their all-female fights last night at the Cosmopolitan. I wasn't able to go, but from all indications, they were a good night of fights. Everybody that's anybody is here in town. The Fan Fest goes on up at the Mandalay Bay, and it's a fun time to be. When is not a fun time to be here in Vegas, but it's an especially fun time if you like the UFC and you like mixed martial arts.
That's it.
Yeah, this is a real good week for those people. So anyhow, man, I guess that's about it from my side. Mark, anything you want to add before we take our leave?
No, we'll be here, same station next week. That's it.
Yeah, there you go. And let's meet at the 51s game. There again, some really fun times are had at the Las Vegas 51s baseball game down at Cashman Field Thursday night. And I'll save $1. I'll buy you a beer.
There you go. All right, we're out of here.
All right, Mark. Well, folks, we thank you so much for listening. For all of us here at Good Sports, I'm Rick Rosen with Mark Anthony. We'll see you again next week right here. Take care.